Okay, everyone, we should be live. People have decided to touch my stuff, so that's always fun. So if there's any audio issues, just let me know. It looks fine in the settings, so hopefully it should be fine. If there are any issues, just to let me know. Because yeah, I'm not impressed this morning or this evening. Ready to moan. Don't need much of an excuse. But yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. Someone did post an interesting question down here in the comments. So I do want to discuss this question, and then we'll go on to talk about Big Suella Braverman and kind of some of my theories around it. I'll be doing like a separate video on it soon, but for now at least, it's not looking too great. Let's see, is this thing moving or not? That's weird. The live stream clock is being, to be fair, I never pay attention to it, but it's skipping seconds. Is there an issue with the stream or anything? It's alright, I was late anyway, so it's okay. Is there any issues with the stream? Oh, about just been driven insane. Could you turn up the sound a bit? Is it my mic volume that's low? Because it's coming up. Let's see. Is it? It's coming up fine on my end. I can tune it up a bit. It's probably me not talking. Probably me not talking very loud. To be fair, because it's in the. Let's see, filters. Let me put it up a bit. How's that sound? Let's go for 7. Is that better? That's too high. It's really hard to balance audio. 6. We'll go 6.2. How's that? Is that good? Is that better? Okay. It's difficult to balance it, so I was only staring at my other screen for ages. So let's get into topics. If anyone needs me to catch them up, then I'll do so. But we're going to start with the kind of the origin, I guess, for all of this, which is the Braverman op-ed that she wrote, and it was a doozy. It was an absolute doozy because she decided to insult different groups of people. Being Home Secretary, you're meant to be kind of a uniting force, but if anything, she's a very divisive character, and I think Sunak used her as a way to kind of deflect attention away from himself and the economy. You notice Jeremy Hunt is very quiet, whereas Braverman is very loud, and I think Sunak saw her as a way to distract people from some of the nonsense he was up to, and the state of the economy. However, the situation now is she's inflaming people, and I think she's doing this because she wants to get sacked and she wants to challenge Sunak for the leadership of the party. Sunak is not in a good position. The party is very, very divided, and I think she sees it as a chance. So I think being leader in opposition is kind of pointless. If you think about it, there's not much you can do. You have the prestige of running the Conservative Party in opposition, which, for a party that's been in charge for 13 years, does that mean a lot? I don't know. I think, a year has passed that Sunak's been in charge. I think there is some sort of rule in the Conservative Party that you can't have a leadership contest within a year. We've gone just over a year, and lo and behold, she's trying to pick a fight. She's trying to get herself sacked. It's not the first time she's done this, but, there was a point where she stayed on as Home Secretary. You got to remember, during the talks around the Windsor framework, she was threatening to resign over it. And Sunak said, look, you can go or you can stay. It's up to you. But she decided she wanted to stay. She wanted the power of being Home Secretary, the third most powerful politician in the cabinet, in the country. That's what she wanted. And that's what she went for. So I think she sees Sunak as a weak leader, and if anything, she's been proven right, because Sunak is a weak leader. Sunak has handled this pathetically, absolutely pathetically, with constant briefings against her. And it's an embarrassing display from the person who's supposedly meant to be in charge. So if we, do you know what should we do? Should we do? We'll do the question first, then we'll jump into the article because this is an interesting question. So Rob Law, who is in the comments, has asked me what has driven the UK bond market yields to their highest since 1988. And is it a lack of an obvious target like Liz Truss that means it gets a fraction of the coverage compared to the lower rates under her premiership? So the interest rates were not low under her premiership. Like, it spiked very high. It's higher now than it was, but I think that's predominantly because interest rates have gone up since she's been Prime Minister. Interest rates gone up dramatically under her tenure, and that means I think bond yields go up. Because of that, the Bank of England releases higher bond yields as a result of higher interest rates. So it is higher now, I think, predominantly because the interest rates are, or partially because the interest rates are higher now than they were, when she started office. And, it does take a bit of time, I think, not too long, maybe a few weeks, for the Bank of England to release higher interest yield bearing bonds, and they have done so. So I think there's two major reasons why the bond yields are so high. One being the interest rates, which is obviously high. Well, actually three predominant reasons why the bond yields are so much higher now. One being the interest rate rises, which happened not just because of her, but kind of because of her. I think she kind of sped it up a lot rather than it being slower. She caused a lot of chaos in the market. So you've got the interest rate rises. I think the American interest rate rises because of the Fed over there have meant that American bonds pay higher yields than British bonds. And so you have a lot of people moving over to American bonds, which means that you have to somehow entice those people to buy the British bonds. And the only way you could do that is by increasing the yield. So I think that would be reason two. Reason three would be because we saw the bond yields collapse, or the bond prices collapse under Liz Truss. The Bank of England stepped in and bought up a load of bonds from the bond market because pension funds, which buy a lot of bonds to leverage that money and borrow against it, had to offload them because the bonds lost value. And so what that meant is doing on a live stream without fully thinking about the question is a bit difficult when I haven't got some sort of bullet points in front of me. So I think what happened was the Bank of England bought up a lot of the kind of the worse or the lower yield bonds, and so they had to put out higher yield bonds because of the interest rate, right? The interest rates. So I think it's three. I listed three, I believe. One being the interest rate rises which were happening across Europe. Via the European Central Bank, but also from America as well. So the Fed. So there is a steadily growing interest rate rises across the world. So that's normal. Ours is higher than the European Central Bank, but I think lower than the Fed. And so what it means is you need, in order to sell bonds, you sell them with higher yields. That's a normal thing. That didn't have much to do with Liz Truss. Liz Truss kind of destroying the bond market. That was to do with Liz Truss. And you also have the fact that the bonds in the UK are not seen as the gold standard anymore, not seen as stable, because a lot of these companies that had a lot of bonds, like pension funds, sold them off. They had to sell them off. Why? Because they lost value completely. They lost a lot of their value, and they were at risk of being margin called. These pension companies were at risk of being margin called, and they would have gone bankrupt. And so because the British bonds are not seen as a gold standard anymore, up there with potentially the American bonds, it means that you have to put the yield up because the risk around British bonds is higher. And, companies, the riskier you are, the higher the interest rate typically is. So I think that's three. So if I can write them in chat, if that's easier. So you got the interest rate rises, Liz Truss tanking the bond market. Thank you, Mithril, for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Tanking the bond market and spiking interest rate. Sorry, I'm just trying to see bond values is tanking and losing their credibility. Because okay, I can't spell, by the way. So if there's any typos, I apologise. But point being is, the British standards aren't worth as much, and it makes it harder for you to, if you're trying to use them to gain, to use them as collateral, to borrow against. It makes your life much more difficult, and I think those are three reasons. Not the only three reasons, but I think those are, in my opinion, three of the major rises. So I hope that answers your question, Robert, if you're still here, and I haven't put you to sleep yet. But yeah, Mithra, I appreciate that, carrying the streams as always. Voice is a bit low. Why is that? My voice, I hate doing. This is why people have producers. I cannot afford one. Bear with me. I think if I was to buy another microphone again, this is not one I would buy. I guess. Oh my days! What am I looking for here? Just bear with me 1 second, guys. There it is. That should. Okay, that should do it. We'll leave it around here. Hopefully the audio should be okay. It looks low in the software. That's the problem. Get Producer Maj. Yeah, well, can't afford Producer Maj. You can't have Producer Maj and Senior Correspondent Maj. You can't have both. They can't be on stream together. Some say they're the same person, but I don't know if that's true. But no, thanks Mithril. Let's see. So if we go on to discuss, oh my god, they need to make a universal dark mode. I swear to God. It's just completely taken my eyes. Sorry about that, everyone. Like, I have to switch between light and dark because websites don't have a dark mode option. They suck. Probably been a bit of more of a moany stream than I probably deserve. But anyways, we'll discuss the Braverman article and the fallout of that, and we'll go from there if everyone's okay with that. I ask rhetorically. So, anyways, so this is the article Braverman wrote. This is the op-ed piece. So, just come back from a live production of Little Shop of Horrors to celebrate my birthday. I didn't realise. I've not heard of that, I'll be honest. I don't know what that is. So anyways, this is Braverman here, writing in the Times, saying it is the pro-Palestinian movement that's mobilised tens of thousands of angry protesters. Well, to be fair, it's about 300,000 now, so that's not even a factual statement. It's hundreds of thousands, I think. March them through London every week. From the start, these events have been problematic, not just because of violence around the fringes, but because of the highly offensive content of chants, posters and stickers. Now, there have been a few, but not many. Probably in the low digits. Honestly, I've seen some offensive stuff, like the person with the people with the paraglider pictures. I've not seen a ton. Highly offensive chants. The ones that have tried to kind of take back that chant of, quote, from the river to the sea, they've been maligned as well. There was a Labour MP who was people took out of context and was misquoted and was suspended. I think they were trying to take back that kind of phrase to make it mean not the destruction of Israel, but the media does what the media does, I guess. But the argument of the violence around these protests, I haven't seen any violence at any of these protests. I've not heard of any. Absence of information doesn't mean it didn't happen. But you'd think the Home Secretary could cite the examples of it happening. She says it's no time for naivety. Using French words. How dare you? Surely she should be using good old English words. Ye old English. She says we have seen with our own eyes that terrorists have been valorized. Israel has been demonized as Nazis and Jews have been threatened with further massacres. What does this mean? Israel has been demonized as Nazis and Jews have been threatened with further massacres. Who's threatening Nazis? This line doesn't even make sense. Did she not have a proofreader? That line makes no sense. She accused the Met of bias over the march, which we'll talk about. She goes, every weekend Each weekend has been worse than the previous one. Last Sunday in central London, police were attacked with fireworks. And again, I didn't read any stories. I haven't read anything about these poppy sellers being mobbed and prevented from raising funds for veterans. Has anyone actually read any of this stuff? Yeah, I did see some stuff from Politics Joe. I think they were interviewing some of the far-right goons and some of the ones on the pro-Palestine march. She talks about, as we approach... there was a few, yeah. There's always a few people that go too far in a protest or try and make it about themselves or get baited into doing something dumb. But in these protests, I've barely seen anything like that. She says, now we approach a particularly significant weekend in the life of our nation, one which calls for respect and commemoration. The hate marchers, a phrase I do not resile from, intend to use Armistice Day to parade through London in yet another show of strength. I mean, what better way to call for a ceasefire than the day that we celebrate the armistice, which was a ceasefire? What better way to call for a ceasefire? She actually makes no sense whatsoever. Here we reach the heart of the matter. She says, I do not believe that these marches are merely a cry for help for Gaza. They are an assertion of a primacy by certain groups, particularly Islamists, of the kind we are more used to seeing in Northern Ireland. So what she has done, this is the thing that inflamed people, and this is something I had to ask someone about because I had no idea what she was talking about here. Honestly, I had no clue what she's saying here. Bear with me, because the only major marches that we see happening in Northern Ireland are the Orange Order and the people who burn the effigy and stuff like that. Those are unionists. So is she comparing Islamists to unionists? And that's why some of the people in Northern Ireland were incredibly angry. I think some of the DUP were angry as well. She goes, this is reminiscent of Ulster, are the reports that of some Saturday's marches, group organizers have links to terrorist groups, including Hamas. Like, the reminiscent of Ulster. Again, who is she talking about here? It was, I think she's trying to link some of the things that happened in Ulster to the IRA, but she's done it in a really clumsy way. She's phrased this really badly, and it makes me think that no one proofread her work. Because, I mean, let's go back quickly, right? This line here, Israel has been demonized as Nazis and Jews have been threatened with further massacres. That line there makes no sense. This line here makes no sense, right? So I don't think anyone's actually proofread her work. I'm genuinely concerned that she doesn't have a proofreader. Can the government not afford proofreaders? Can the Times not be like, yo, dog, I don't know about this line. You sure you want us to publish this? So yeah, she's talked about these quote hate marches and all this other nonsense, and she's trying to pull the Met into disrepute here. She says we must be evenly handed. Unfortunately, there is a perception that senior police officers play favourites when it comes to protests. So during COVID, why was it that lockdown objectors were given no quarter by public order police? Yeah, Black Lives Matter demonstrators were enabled, allowed to break the rules, and even greeted with officers taking the knee. I don't remember where did this happen? Is she gonna talk about a specific protest? She doesn't, but I don't remember Black Lives Matter being given any quarter by Met Police. And also, let's not forget here that the Met Police stopped the Sarah Everard protest, and I can't remember if that was on the order of Priti Patel or not. But, the argument that Met Police do play favourites, I think to an extent is true, but it's not towards lefty protesters, not even close. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, because they stopped people who are pro-Palestinian from marching by the cenotaph. They didn't stop far-right goons from going to the cenotaph. So it does raise the question, who are the favourites here? She says right-wing and nationalist protesters who engage in aggression are rightly met with a stern response, yet pro-Palestinian mobs displaying almost identical behaviour are largely ignored. Now, I would ask her, where are these pro-Palestinian... bear with me, I'm going to cough. So about that. Where are these pro-Palestinian marches that are similar to the far-right kind of protests and riots that we've seen? Because we saw some far-right goons fighting with police, urinating on memorials, amongst other things. I'm not saying where is the comparison? I don't get it. There's no this is such a false equivalency here with no evidence actually given. which, you know, if this was a university essay, this would be given a fail. They said football fans are even more vocal about the tough way they are policed as compared to politically connected minority groups. Politically connected minority groups who are favoured by the left. It may be that senior police officers are more concerned about how much flack they are likely to get than whether this perceived unfairness alienates the majority. The government has a duty to take a broader view. If the march goes ahead this weekend, the public will expect to see an assertive and proactive approach to any displays of hate, breaches of conditions, and general disorder. And do you know what's ironic? We haven't seen that from the pro-Palestinian marches. We have seen that from the far-right protesters, and that's something we'll discuss in a bit. This from the Met Police.
So today, at the moment, we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with a counter-protest, and we're dealing with the main Palestinian march. The counter-protest arrived early this morning, just after 9 o'clock, and groups of several hundred arrived and seemed intent on confrontation and intent on violence. We've seen a number of arrests made. We've had arrests for possession of a knife, possession of a baton, possession of Class A drugs, and assault on an emergency worker. There are a number of groups within this counter-protest who have split off and seem intent on seeking confrontation with the main Palestinian march. And the policing operation at the moment is being effective.
So you're telling me the far-right protesters are seeking confrontation with the pro-Palestinian protesters? Is that what you're saying?
Groups within this counter-protest who have split off and seem intent on...
That's mean, Mithril. That is funny. That is funny. You didn't need the joke thing in there. That's funny, though. I respect that. I respect that.
Seeking confrontation with the main Palestinian march.
So you got far-right goons who are actively seeking confrontation, actively seeking violence. And yet Braverman wasn't concerned by them. Braverman was trying to whip up these kind of people into a frenzy to go there because they were thinking the cenotaph is going to be abused or whatever. She's helped instigate this mess.
And the policing operation at the moment is being effective in preventing that happening. The main Palestinian march formed up as intended at 12 o'clock and has moved off at 12:45. It's moving along the prescribed route, and there are tens of thousands of people. This is the biggest march.
I think it's about 300,000
that we've seen in this phase, and it's at the moment there are no issues with it. It's being closely monitored by police, and we also have police looking out for any troublemakers that might be intent on causing disruption or seeking a confrontation with people on that main march.
So you can see here, this video published 4:42 today, 4:52 even today, shows you that there's been no issue today so far with anyone at the pro-Palestinian march. But we can see what he says here is, people are looking for confrontation. There were certain people looking for confrontation.
Counter-protest who have split off and seem intent on seeking confrontation with the main Palestinian march.
So the question is, who are these counter-protesters? That's the key question. So, this is... I haven't structured this in the best way, I'll be real. We'll jump back to Suella Braverman. I'd probably leave it as this, to be honest, in the video I actually produced on this. But this is kind of some of the responses to what Braverman has said. And clearly they are very annoyed. Ministers are very annoyed at this.
True depth of the fury of people on both sides of this debate revealed in messages sent between Conservative MPs and leaked to Sky News. Let's look at some of them. There was an exchange on a Conservative WhatsApp group that began with the veteran Conservative MP John Hayes. Now, he wrote that it was so sad to see the protests being allowed on the Remembrance weekend, wholly inappropriate, and we should speak for the law-abiding patriotic majority by saying no. So he is an ally of Suella Braverman, and he is backing...
So he wanted, right? You got to remember. So the people here are using their right to protest, and the people on Remembrance Sunday, especially, I think this is to commemorate World War One, which was, not really a battle against fascism. World War One was, a stupid war. Let's be honest. But they did die and fight for the rights of the monarchy. But anyways, they were told it was a fight for freedom. And so, if we're talking about these brave patriots who died for freedom and blah blah blah, right? Why is it that people should be able to protest on the day that we commemorate them? Because that isn't the whole point of freedom, is to be able to tell the government of the day that you are not happy with them. or on any situation that you are not happy, that you should have the right to protest regardless of it's Remembrance Sunday or not. Do we not have the freedom to do this?
Her stance. But almost immediately, another former minister weighs in. That's Jackie Doyle-Price, and she says there is a right to protest, but they are not allowed. Colleagues making noise about them will simply advertise them and will make them bigger as a consequence. In other words, she seems to be saying...
Are you asking someone to give Suella a hug from you?
That by Tory MPs complaining about these marches, you're only going to inflame and attract groups such as the English Defence League and the far right. John Hayes hits back. They have been allowed by the Chief Constable, who could have requested that they get stopped. Then there was a message, a big stand was taken by a prominent Conservative MP. That's Bernard Jenkin. He's a Brexiteer, seen on the right of the party, and he then comes down forcefully against Suella Braverman. He says, am I the only Conservative MP who thinks that it is most unfortunate that the chief of the Met Police is being placed under public pressure from the government, which threatens to compromise public confidence in the operational independence? If he does...
And that's something we saw, the kind of... that kind of line between the government and the police who are meant to be independent from the government. During the Sarah Everard vigil, I think, that line was very, very sketchy. And I think it was the government that shut that protest down, even though there were people honouring someone who was murdered by a police officer. And, that protest was shut down, even though it was done respectfully. That line between the Met Police and the Home Office gets blurry, I think, day by day. Especially under Cressida Dick. I think the person in charge now, it looks like he's trying to draw a line under that. I doubt I don't know if he's going to be much better than her, but he has come under a lot of pressure from the government and has not bowed to it.
Does not ban demonstrations. Some will say he's given in to political pressure. These conversations should be conducted in private without undermining public confidence in policing in London. That's a significant intervention because you can see effectively how he is taking a stand. And you get, if you look at the next slide, MPs rowing in behind him. William Bragg, a select committee chair, saying, no, you're not the only one to think that. Jackie Doyle-Price also agreeing. Tim Lawton, no, you're not the only one, Bernard. All of these people effectively repudiating Suella Braverman. There you can see also Bob Neal.
You can see a party really divided over this because the Conservative Party claimed therefore freedom and all of these things, right? And yet here they are trying to stop a protest.
He did speak out publicly. But then, have a look at this. This is somebody from the other side, Carl McCartney. And he actually then goes on the attack. Hugely aggressive language. Really pleased with Bob Leal and Richard Graham's helpful public carping in the last 24 hours. I'm sure the Christmas cards from Yvette Cooper will take pride of place amongst all their others, but not as half pleased as they obviously both are with themselves. You stretch our patience like the ever-popular Soubry. That's a reference, by the way, to Anna Soubry, who left the Conservatives and went to...
And you can see, kind of, imagine having an attitude like this towards one of your colleagues, who disagree with you. I hope the Christmas cards from senior Labour MPs have pride of place. Like, this is just... I think it's borderline. It's pretty close to bullying, to be honest with you. You're trying to pressure someone who has made a statement saying, protest, they should be allowed to protest effectively. And that's what Suella Braverman is doing wrong. A disagreement. And you coming out with language like, oh, I hope you're happy you're helping the Labour Party. Just embarrassing behaviour from Carl McCartney.
Change UK. You have... then an intervention by Danny Kruger. He says, basically, times have changed and a quiet word with the police behind closed doors won't work. We're on their side. We need to convince the public we're on their side and share their attitude to these disgraceful protests.
There is. We need to be populous. We need to show the people that we are on their side, even though I don't know how much the public actually care about these protests. It's just the Conservatives are trying to make this issue a big deal. And then say, oh, look at all these hate marches, we need to stop them, and kind of whip up the public into hating these peaceful protests. That's what they want.
What happened to the police are the public. So yes, respect, but also public challenge. And then we conclude with essentially the frustration all bubbling over. Jackie Doyle-Price advising colleagues to take this conversation private, not do it on WhatsApp. Jill Mortimer backs up saying that if you do all of this on WhatsApp, there are colleagues who might leak it because they are untrustworthy and disgraceful leakers. Turns out Jill Mortimer was right. Sky News got hold of these. Yep. William Ragg saying, I have had enough of this rubbish. The overall significance of this is showing that the comments by Suella Braverman are tearing apart the Conservative Party in private. Those tensions this evening bubbling away inside the Tories. Rishi Sunak, everybody is looking at the Prime Minister to decide, does he back or does he sack Suella Braverman? And these messages show the sheer depth of emotion on both sides. But
and this is what I mean. These are Tory MPs who are desperately, some of these people are desperately just trying to, all they have is the culture war. And they're trying to hold on to it as much as possible, whilst you have others saying, "What? You know, we shouldn't be doing this." Effectively, you know, there is rule of law amongst other things. You know, am I happy to see the Tory Party destroy themselves? Yes, but over this issue, it's a lot more toxic. It's a lot more toxic than I thought it'd be. I'll be honest, especially given this lot are in charge and they actually have to do stuff. Yeah, what we're witnessing is a party fumble here, dramatically. And, you know, Tory MPs are kind of struggling to say if they back Braverman or not, and it is hilarious.
Do you agree with Suella Braverman, your friend, as you say, that the police are guilty of political bias when it comes to protests?
The police have accepted that there have been occasions in the past where they haven't always got it
I know
right.
You've made that point already. I'm asking a different one.
Well,
do you agree that that getting it wrong is motivated by political bias, which is what the Home Secretary is claiming?
I think it's more complicated than that. I think it's very, very difficult to get it right in all instances, and I welcome the fact that the police have acknowledged that in the past.
So you don't quite agree with her then?
Well, I'm putting it in my way, and other people can put it their way, but the real issue...
You know, if you agree with someone, you wouldn't have to say, look, I'm going to tell you how I think about it, and, you know, other people tell you how they think about it, but, you know, I'm going to do it my way. But, you know, if you agree with her, you just say you agree with her. If you don't, you don't. That's all it is.
Here is that Jewish people are finding it unsafe to walk around the streets. So I think we should be thinking about that rather than worrying about the exact wording used by the Home Secretary, who, like every member of this government...
OK, we might not be worrying about it if she hadn't put a piece in the Times about it, in fairness.
Yeah, you know, it's a kind of the Streisand effect. She's made this a big deal. She's turned this, like I said, that's all she had to do to whip up hatred.
Few things to say. The first is that this is the latest in a long string of moments where the Home Secretary has tested the Prime Minister's patience to a limit and he has not sacked her. Why? We know that he had a Faustian pact with her when he became Prime Minister. She lent her backers to him. His reward to her was making her Home Secretary. And there has been a sense in Westminster that she has been immovable. So she tests the limit, she challenges his authority, she says incendiary things and still she stays. And I think today she really is testing the limits. And the reason I say that is, number one of her key backers, Sir John Hayes, was on the WhatsApp groups as soon as this article landed last night, trying to back her up, perhaps because he knew that she had overreached. And you are getting universal fury from but a few Suella Braverman backers today in terms of the Tory ranks. And number two, when you speak to her backers, I mean, even one of her supporters acknowledged to me earlier, I'm just reading what they said to me, that some sort of reprimand or lesser sanction against the Home Secretary or her team that worked on the piece could be in order, given that number 10 is looking...
Thanks, Mithril. Mithril's gifted some memberships. I really appreciate that. That's great. I thanks. It's a great gift to myself and the people who were gifted them. On this one, it does look like Suella Braverman may have the Boris Johnson problem where she is popular amongst the membership, but I don't think she's popular with party MPs. And the more involved she gets in scandals, the harder it is to defend her. And I think that's one of the issues the Tory party are running into now, where she has said something that's very, very inflammatory. You know, not only has she insulted the pro-Palestinian marchers, which they probably don't care about, but she has also inflamed unionists in Northern Ireland as well. And her arguments, again, don't make sense. And I think Tory MPs are struggling to back her on this, especially when she's trying to overrule the Met Police's decision on the protests. I think that's one of the other problems they're running into. The so-called party of law and order, when the police make a decision, are saying that's the wrong decision. And I don't think that sits well with people.
Into it. So what they're arguing is, well, you can't sack her over a war over words because she hasn't broken collective cabinet responsibility.
That's not true, because she has... I want to say that's not true, but it depends on what, this video was from 2 days ago. The problem is we are getting mixed stories about what's happened, what has been authorised and what hasn't, and we'll discuss that one.
When it comes to policy, but I think the fact that they aren't sure what he's going to do shows that she is on thin ice. The final thing I would say, Sophie, is that, as Rishi Sunak watches, what we do know is that he is a man that loves the process. So when it was Dominic Raab, when it was Nadeem Sahari, do you remember that? Went on for weeks. He said, I want to follow a process, I want to find the evidence, and then I will make a judgment. And the difficulty he's got with this is a political judgment, because, they're not having an informal investigation. Yes, they're looking at how it came about that the article was published despite Number 10 wanting changes. They've made it clear that they didn't sanction it, but that's different from a formal investigation about whether she broke the ministerial code. So it's on him. He has to make a political judgment. He doesn't like doing that. And the question I have...
He's not good at making political judgment. That's one of the reasons we're in this mess. He's here because he's not a good leader. He can't make the calls when he has to. And that's one of the issues he's running into. He's scared to deal with Braverman because Braverman has backers in the party. She has the hand of the membership. Sunak does not have the hand of the membership. The members don't like it. He's at around, I think, 9% of favourability in the Conservative Party polls. Braverman is way above him amongst the membership. And that's one of the things I think he's concerned about. The one thing the Tory party fears is a Reform UK-type party, and Braverman helps prevent that. And if you get rid of Braverman, I think it makes Reform UK more likely to take away votes from the Conservative Party, which is something the Tories do fear.
Really is that, yes, he could sack her, but he will get a backlash from some of her backers, not least in grassroots membership, who never voted for him to be Prime Minister in the first place. So I think...
Let's not forget, most of the Tory members voted against him to be Prime Minister when it was him against Liz Truss. And I think if it was him against Braverman, he would lose as well.
We are in what I would say is a holding pattern. They've kind of put out a marker saying we're looking into it. It's not the end of the story. There are rumours awash about a reshuffle, does he shuffle her out perhaps next week?
I think if he does a reshuffle and he tries to demote her, she'll resign. I think we can see that happening. Because I think she very much sees herself as a top politician. So if you move a top politician, someone who sees themselves as an A-leaguer to the B-leagues, effectively a lower ministerial position, I think they'd rather resign. We saw that with, I think it was... We saw that with other ministers. I can't remember specifics, but they were offered... we saw that at Jeremy Hunt, I think, actually, under Boris Johnson, where Jeremy Hunt was Foreign Secretary and he was offered a demotion, I think, by Boris Johnson. He was like, nah, I'm just going to quit. And so he just resigned. I think probably the same thing with people like Priti Patel and stuff like that, when she resigned from Home Secretary, Sunak came in because it's just a safe face.
But I think it comes down to the nub of it is that she's challenged his authority again and again and again. He looks too weak to sack her. And if he does sack her, Labour will be able to say, we bounced him. So he is in a really, really... I think the phrase is a rock and a hard place, isn't it?
It does feel that.
But I don't think Labour can really take a victory lap over this. I mean, they've called for the resignation of other ministers in the past. It didn't do much. The idea of, we've bounced him. All he's got to say is she broke the ministerial code and she had to go. That's pretty much it. I don't. Labour will take a small victory lap over it, but to argue it was Labour who did this, or who, if Labour trying to argue they're the ones that caused this, it was her own downfall. Like, trying to score a political win off this would be pretty difficult. And given how bad Labour are at comms, I think they'll probably goof it.
But I don't think this is the end of it. I think that there will have to be, given that they have publicly said we didn't endorse it, some sort of sanction. Sometimes you can do the thing where someone else falls on the sword, not her. I would say it's a very live discussion at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating one. I was in that camp. I was in the camp of thinking she was unsackable. Tonight,
yeah, it's not. It's not as
different place.
It's not as well. He's equivocated. He hasn't. But he said, I have full confidence, but I absolutely didn't endorse this article. Now, that obviously is a bit of a party management issue, but that's also a rebuke to her publicly.
Yeah, it's to say, I didn't endorse this. You're important to the party, but I didn't endorse what you've said, and other ministers have kind of done something similar. We'll go to Northern Ireland, I think, and kind of their views on this.
Well, Sophie, we are live in Dublin tonight, but I suppose it feels like we're broadcasting from a parallel universe on a day when a UK Home Secretary doesn't appear to know the difference between unionists and nationalists in Northern Ireland. That's the obvious conclusion to draw from the comments in which she described those demonstrating in support of Palestine this weekend as hate marchers of the type we're more used to seeing in Northern Ireland, quote unquote. It is Protestants, unionists, loyalists, natural allies of the Tories who are responsible for 95% of marches in Northern Ireland. So to describe this as an own goal would be an understatement. Unionists have been choosing their words carefully today, some even defending the Home Secretary. That's because they wouldn't want to concede that someone at her level in government would be so ill-informed about Northern Ireland.
Wouldn't surprise me, given that some of the statements that they've made previously. I mean, Dominic Raab, when he was asked about the Good Friday Agreement, he said he had read it. When asked about a specific part of it, he said, I haven't read it cover to cover. And just like, no one expects you to, G, but you should know most of it at least. Didn't make sense. So, yeah, what she's done here is she's really kicked the bee's nest.
But nationalists are not holding back. The SDLP leader described it as aggressive ignorance. And the Sinn Féin president, Mary Lou MacDonald, said Suella Braverman was at sea and ignorant about Northern Ireland and about the Middle East.
It's interesting it's Mary Lou MacDonald who gave the response rather than Michelle O'Neill. I think it would have made more sense for Michelle O'Neill to say something, given that she's in charge of the Northern Irish part of Sinn Féin, I guess. But Mary Lou MacDonald's not wrong on this one. So I'm saying his full confidence in her brings to mind a football club chairman. Yeah, I mean it's the infamous what's it called? The vote of confidence. So yeah, the Tories sent us a Secretary of State once that thought unionists voted for national. Oh, when the hell was that? Who was what? We'll keep going here. This tweets No Justice, citing a Guardian article that saying counter-protesters have clashed with police in Chinatown, according to the PA news agency. I think that's the Press Association. The agency reports violent clashes broke out with protesters chanting, quote, "You're not English anymore," end quote, towards police officers. Police manages to disperse their crowd, splitting them into two smaller groups. Protesters were last seen running through Chinatown in the direction of Piccadilly Circus, and boy, has this become a circus. Among the crowd of people who gathered at the Cenotaph War Memorial to watch the remembrance events, some right-wing counter-protesters opposed the Palestinian march, chanted messages including, quote, "We want our country back," according to Reuters. So, Suella saying, the problem is these Palestinian hate marches. What would she define these kind of far-right protests as? Because they're telling people, you're not English anymore. Who are you to define who is and isn't English? And saying, we want our country back. Our country back from who? That's the question. She was called Karen Patterson, and she was from Cambridge. Who was Prime Minister? So, the Met Police used its powers to ban pro-Palestinian marchers, but not, quote, Cenotaph defenders and far-right groups from Whitehall today. When asked why the senior officer in charge of the operation said they thought thought that the protesters, quote, would not cause serious disorder by themselves, end quote. At a press conference, DAC Lawrence Taylor did not use the term far-right and called the Cenotaph event a counter-protest. He said counter-protests will be allowed in Whitehall because the sole purpose and intention is to protect the sanctity of the Cenotaph and remembrance, which makes no sense given that they've given the Cenotaph to a bunch of far-right lunatics. Dak Taylor added, I don't anticipate there will be any disorder from that group. The disorder will come from the pro-Palestinian group going into that area whilst they are there, if they are there. So you're telling me, like, you're saying the only disruption is going to be if the pro-Palestinian group go there, where the far right are. Like, surely the issue is the far right then. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what the whole point of this person. I'm not criticizing Lizzie Dearden. I'm criticizing whoever DAC Lawrence Taylor is. Sounds like a complete fraud. So this from Jeremy Hunt, asked about if he backs Braverman.
Do you, Chancellor, have confidence in the Metropolitan Police?
I absolutely have confidence. I think they operate without fear or favour, and they do a very difficult job.
Do you then have confidence in Suella Braverman? Because surely you can't have both.
As far as the Prime Minister is concerned, he has stated that he has confidence in her, and I, as Chancellor, don't have anything to add to those comments.
Do you feel happy with that?
Well, I've said that I wouldn't use the words that she uses, but I have a very productive relationship with her as a colleague, and it's a very important relationship.
For her.
Well, it's very important that we have a productive relationship because I'm the Chancellor and I need to fund the very, very important.
This is a proper Weasley, but he didn't want to say he had confidence in her. You know, it goes to show you that she doesn't have it, and obviously Jeremy Hunt being really from a different wing of the Conservative Party. If you look at the three, they are, you know, kind of fairly different. Sunak, Braverman, and Hunt. Yeah, what Hunt is saying here is a bit dodgy, shall we say? And we'll discuss him in a bit. So 49% of British people think Sunak should sack Braverman. Around just 22% of Brits think that Braverman should stay as Home Secretary. This from Sonia Soda saying, quote, "You're on a very dangerous ground when the police have made an assessment according to law and you've got Home Secretary Suella Braverman, a politician, stepping in and saying this process should be banned anyways. This is undermining the free right of expression and protest in this country," which I agree with.
Dangerous ground.
You know, which I 100% I agree with. When you have the police have made an assessment, whether they're right or wrong, they'll have to figure that out later. But for a politician to step and say, actually, you're wrong, is completely stupid when she's not privy to the reports that they have. You know, this person trying to explain why Braverman is saying why she's saying what she's saying, which is, you know, that Braverman appeals to voters, the current leadership does not. And I think that's why he's kept her in for so long. She's a good distraction, but she also appeals to far-right lunatics. She's one of them. She's from that camp. Karen Bradley was appointed by May in 2018. She was gone by July 28. She did not last long. You're not wrong. Hunt didn't even say he had respect for Braverman. I mean, this is what I'm saying. This party is so divided. They have no, they don't like each other for the most part. This again from Sonia, saying Braverman expects the Conservative Party to lose the next election and for there to be a leadership contest shortly afterwards. But I kind of disagree. That I think what she's going to do is, what she's trying to do is get herself sacked and then run for Tory leader. I think that's her plan. Get herself sacked and then try and get rid of Sunak. And why would you wait for after the election when they're going to be a minority party? It doesn't make sense. Make your move now. He's not safe from a leadership contest. The Tories have potentially another year and a bit in power. Why would you wait that long? Why would you wait 2 years? Especially if the Tories get decimated in an election, your seat isn't even guaranteed. Got her name mixed up with the BBC lady. I see. Point being is, her seat isn't even guaranteed. I think they're giving her a safe seat. But in these upcoming elections, we don't know. So if she was going to make a move, why would you wait 2 years? Just do it now. And I think that's what's going to happen. So I kind of disagree with the analysis here, but it's all up in the air. This is one person, kind of one senior government source, saying that they expect Braverman to be sacked by Monday or on Monday, and they're confident of that, so we wait to see that. Senior Tory MPs, however, have threatened Rishi Sunak with no confidence letters and government resignations if he sacks Braverman. This in the most cringe statement I've seen probably this year, pure cringe, saying quote, "Don't F with Suella. If you come for the Queen, the rooks, the knights, the pawns, and the bishops will all stand in the way," end quote. And where were they when Boris Johnson needed them? Where were the rooks, the knights, and the pawns to protect their king? This is the most cringe statement I've heard in a long time. Genuine bafflement at this statement. I'm stunned. This is them break about the ministerial code.
Is perfectly clear that if a minister is going to make a public statement, put out a press release, give an interview, it has to be cleared by number 10. Number 10 are making it clear tonight that Suella Braverman has not done that. Has she therefore broken the ministerial code?
That's a matter for number 10.
Oh, come on, give us your opinion, David.
No, I mean,
your government.
I can't possibly clear every single thing I say and do.
Yes, but an article in the Times and that prominent?
Do you know, I just think that the bureaucracy around how things get signed off is lost on most people. What are we trying to achieve?
Well, no, I'm just asking a very simple question. Has she broken the ministerial code?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I have no idea. Do
you not know what the ministerial code is?
I do know what it is. I've read it. It's a great big long legal document, and I can't start interpreting whether
it's not very long,
people have done it or not. What I support Suella on, and all members of the cabinet, is saying that those marches need to be a bit more respectful than they have been. That's the real issue.
The ministerial code matters. You can't just dismiss it by saying it's a long document.
I'm not in a position to start making rulings on it.
If you are in government, you have a handle, you have a means of affecting people's lives. And if people do not abide by a ministerial code, and if we, in all honesty, we know that the buck stops with the Prime Minister, who is usually, the same thing was with Boris Johnson, is too afraid to actually implement it. The ministerial code matters, because otherwise it's chaotic, isn't it?
It was about the Nolan principles. I can't remember what they are, but that's what the ministerial code, I think, is based on, or one of the main factors in it. It's called the Nolan principles.
Which particular paragraph of the ministerial code is it? You don't know.
Well, I assume you must have some working knowledge of it. David, I assume you must have some working knowledge of it, Angus, or else you wouldn't be able to abide by it, or you'd be completely at sea. So that would be an interesting place to be as a government.
I have to say, as a member of the public, it's quite scary that, who watches the watchers? Yeah. If people aren't listening to the ministerial code, like, who's protecting us? Like, what, can they just do whatever they want?
No. But the argument is whether or not every single thing that you ever say or write has to be signed off, or whether it can be put. Yeah, but it's a rather boring argument. I don't know why we're discussing it when all that's going on in the Middle East.
You're not doing
and we've got
politics any
protests and all the rest
favour
of it, and you're talking about interpreting a ministerial code on
you
TV.
can't accidentally.
Yeah, that's a bit of a lame one. I'll cut that one for the actual video. That was a bit lame. Sorry, guys. Another cabinet minister on Braverman saying, quote, "Suella is stupid. She has been totally useless, a totally useless minister, and is now making the mistake of believing her own publicity. She is toast," end quote. So, you've got different stories from different people. Let's see. We've got really these three here. So a senior government source saying they expect her to be sacked. You've got another, let's flip these around, senior Tory MPs saying Rishi Sunak with no confidence letters if he sacks Braverman. But you got two, essentially, one senior government source. You've got one cabinet minister saying she's gone. You've got senior Tory MPs, however, saying don't F with Suella because, these people are sad as hell. Right, cringy as hell. So who knows? This from Kate McCann, and it's quite interesting, right? So she says, because she works for Sky. No, did she work for Sky? She works for Radio Times. She says, "I understand Number 10 did see Suella Braverman's Times comment piece before it was published, and that the Home Office accepted some edits." That's what she said at 8:58 on the 9th. And then I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. It's all good. Them saying... And then she comes out and says, about a few hours later, she comes out... What's going on with my chair? She says, "Understand Number 10 didn't technically sign off the comment piece, although they did see it and offer edits. Source also claimed the Home Office did not accept all the changes Number 10 asked for. Hard to see where this leaves the Home Secretary and her relationship with the PM." So Sunak must have seen the piece, or his team must have seen the piece, and said, "Here are some edits." Braverman apparently said, "Nah, bruv," and they published it. So it does go to show you. She's the second safest seat. I don't know what you declare a safe seat at this point. I would be even if I was in a Tory safe seat, if I was a Tory MP, I'd be a bit nervous. maybe Sunak keeps her because he lacks a successor. I mean, there was a list of MPs that could replace her, and I'll tell you what, they were the most boring people. Oliver Dreary, Tom Tug on his hat. You had the most boring people. So maybe you're right, but I think he uses her as a distraction from the economy. So number 10 disowns Braverman over the peace. She claimed, we've gone over her claims. Some Tory MPs have called for her to be sacked. It's very clear that the party is very torn on it. Michael Gove, we'll leave my man be. A weak, Sunak being accused of being weak and should sack Braverman now, Tory ministers have said. So you've got multiple ministers against what Braverman is saying, by the looks of things, multiple meaning probably 2 or more. But then you have senior Tories who are very pro-Braverman saying don't sack her, otherwise we'll send the goons. We'll do some goon stuff, talking about the rooks and the whatever else, and being cringe. Like I said, these people are cringe. So I don't know what to make of this, honestly. There is some more stuff I wanted to discuss. The Jeremy Hunt thing. We've Loki discussed it, but he's there with certain ministers. I'm trying to move this across. Just help me organise it a bit better. Who have kind of distanced themselves from her. Joe, how do you have the top, the leader, the prime minister saying, I told you people don't question the tabs, okay? Stop questioning. Look at my task manager, right? I'm nervous as is, right? Look at this, 84%. We still have percentage points to go, people. All right, we still have. I can open more tabs. I've got tabs open. I've got OBS running. I'm streaming on YouTube. This PC can do it all for now. It's going strong. But yeah, point being, ministers are backing away from Braverman. So the question really is, how much support does she have, I think, within the party? That's the key question. And the more he keeps her in post, the weaker he is, because the problem he's got is he's actively briefing against her. So this is the thing about the grassroots. So his problem. I swear, you people have problems, all right? You people. I asked politely to not question the tabs, all right? But people are still questioning the tabs. What is this? What is this? If you wanted to be funny and question tabs, when I put the community post up, you should ask, why do you have so many tabs open? And then I can actually answer your questions. It's just silly. But he's being accused of being weak. Oh my god. Fine. Take my data. Grassroots Conservatives say Suella Braverman is a real contender for the Conservative... Oh, what have I opened? Leadership amid ongoing anger. And so I think one of the reasons why he doesn't want to sack her is because she's a leadership contest. Exactly. Don't mention the tabs. Yeah, this guy Jenrick's a scumbag. This guy's a scumbag. So that just caught my eye. So I think the reason he doesn't want to let her go because she's there now. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, I guess. Honestly, we don't. 4 dozen tabs. I reckon. Do you know what it is? I've got other windows open. So I have this one. I have another one behind this one, and I've got a third one. So you're close. Thank you, Verti. Vote for the Tories. Everything they touch turns to poo. Yeah, you're not wrong, to be fair there, bud. It do be like that. I was going to play this clip, but this guy, Mark Harper, is one of those boring dudes I've ever seen. And so when asked about does Suella Braverman have your backing, he didn't really answer the question. So that's another one. Exactly, the PC is still going strong, 16 gigs of RAM, 4 sticks, Let's go. This should not be here. This should be... that should be over there. Right. And these are the far-right goons that I was discussing earlier. These are the guys that took over they took over the cenotaph. masked up because they got nothing to hide, right? And these are, them fighting with police. Police look very under-equipped. People throwing stuff at the police, these great patriots of our country throwing stuff at the police. That man's got a COVID mask on, or, one of those kind of masks on, even though I thought COVID was over. That's a big upgrade, to be fair. There's people throwing stuff at police. I don't know why people are chanting that. So, we should, according to Braverman, we should be fearing Palestinian marches, but not fearing these guys. These guys we should not fear, according to Braverman. There's more here.
They're fucking going.
People storming the cenotaph. Even though the police said they didn't think there'd be anything really happening at the cenotaph. That police officer there has absolutely no chance. You can see them in high vis. Like, I'm going to assume that's a police officer because they're wearing high vis. Yeah, there looks like there's a few of them. Like, they got absolutely no chance. They've been completely overrun at the cenotaph. Look at that. There's like 2 police officers. There's like a good couple hundred people by the looks of things. Completely overrun at the cenotaph. It's nonsense. You've got big Tommy Robinson, everyone's favourite goon. He was there as well, because of course he was. Oh, what's going on? Yeah, he was there. Of course he was. You've got Sunak's patients apparently wearing thin. Politics Home, understand. Politics Home is a page really for conservatives. Is where they poll. No, that's Conservative Home I'm thinking of. Sorry, I didn't mean that about Politics Home. Apologies. They say number 10 whips have received a lot of complaints from Conservative MPs. Would be an understatement. A senior Tory MP tells me, and that was before her Times piece. So she was already unpopular, and I think what she's doing is looking to be a martyr for the far right in order to gain their support. At least that would be my kind of guess. But again, it's very hard. It's very hard to know what she's thinking. What her actual plan is. She's a tricky one to figure out, I'll be honest. She doesn't make much sense. So there's this one. The Tories and their war on the homeless. So Tory government is set to widen their war on the homeless, hungry and unfortunate, instead of offering support to people on the streets. They're going to criminalise rough sleeping and begging. Prisons are already full. Government looking to rent prison cells in other countries. The situation has gotten so bad that we're going to rent prisons from other countries. I don't know which countries we're going to rent, and I don't know what tier of prisoner will go there. But this is the state the country's in now, that we're going to be offloading prisoners to other countries. This from, I think it was last week actually, the story came out. Yeah, Braverman wants to restrict tents from homeless people, and the best way to, if you wanted to stop people using tents right in the streets, is to actually try and offer them accommodation, actual housing, so they're not going to freeze to death in those tents, because that's the reason they're up, is because of warmth. People need warmth. It's not hard for Suella to figure that out, but apparently she's not very bright given the firestorm she's caused in her own party. But at the end of the day, this is going interestingly. At least we get to smoke that big Suella Braverman pack. Honestly, because I think she's done. I don't think she's popular enough to be a leader. I genuinely don't. So, that's what we've got, the Braverman pack. So it's just a GIF I really enjoy, and I keep posting it everywhere. The other thing I wanted to discuss is Macron's comments recently, with him calling for a ceasefire, and him saying, a ceasefire would benefit Israel, which is something that not many other Western leaders are saying. A lot of them have said, a ceasefire would benefit Hamas. The ones that have kind of called for ceasefires and other things are, I think, out of the Western countries, it is Ireland, Belgium, Spain, Scotland, and France. That's it. Ireland, Belgium, Scotland, Spain, and France. That's it. They're the only ones I can think of. It was in The Guardian yesterday. The police removed and destroyed the tents of the homeless. I think I saw that. I think someone posted it actually on Discord. So yeah, it's just silly. But yeah, it's just this is not how you combat homelessness. This is about pleasing people who see tents as an eyesore. And so instead of dealing with the causes of homelessness, they say, "Oh no, we're going to take your tent away." Honestly, it's just embarrassing behaviour. Robinson got laughed out of. I mean, to be fair, that doesn't surprise me. Him getting laughed out of Ireland. Him going to Ireland is probably one of the dumbest things that he could do. Honestly, yeah, Stephen, little Stevie. That's what we should call him. Yeah, his name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, I think. Yaxley's just a bit of an odd name. Nah, it's easy money for him. Don't forget, he was sued. A couple of years ago. I think this year, I think it went to court, and he was ordered to pay a load of money. So he needs to bring back that persona. He needs that PayPal money. He wants to live that good life. So that doesn't surprise me. So let's have a listen to what Macron says. And I'm not gonna lie, I think this is the first time in a while I've heard Macron speak, especially in English, and he sounds really different to what I thought he'd sound like.
We've had weeks of aid organisations sounding the alarm about Gaza, and so you've now said that humanitarian pauses in fighting aren't enough, and there needs to be work towards a ceasefire. Are you disappointed that other world leaders aren't joining you in that call, like the US or the UK?
Other world leaders, as in, the world leader that matters the most, which is the Americans. The UK are not big players in this, but the Americans are.
No, I hope they will. And let's be clear, I was one of the first leaders to call the Prime Minister and President of Israel after the terrorist attack, the 7th of October. We clearly condemn this terrorist attack and this terrorist group and recognize the right...
With Macron, I don't know a lot about his politics domestically. I know there are some bills that are kind of anti-Muslim, and I think he has rattled that cage a fair few times. There have been a lot of problems in France, I think, with certain extremists, which is understandable. I think the way France have reacted to it is not always the best, and I think they do cause a lot of fights with Muslim majority countries. There were boycotts, I think, from Qatar and other kind of Arab states over French goods because of what Macron said. So I don't think his responses have always been good, and I think he does kind of play into it a bit more than he should. But as a guy who, he hasn't got much to lose at this point, considering he can't run again because of the way French elections, presidential elections work. I think you can only have 2 terms. So there is that. And the other thing is, internationally, from what I've seen of him, and I could be wrong, he did try and talk to the Russians before their invasion of Ukraine and, try and get them to stand down, effectively try and go through diplomatic means, which ultimately didn't work. But, you can't fault him for Putin's war. He wasn't the reason behind it, but at least he tried to stop it. Maybe he kind of sees himself as the big man a bit, or maybe he wants kind of more international cooperation. I don't know. But, internationally, I think he's been fine for the most part. I could be wrong on certain aspects, but I think he's been fine. As far as Western leaders go, or kind of, you kind of have to rephrase that because Ireland is a Western country as well. As far as kind of the I was going to say major players, but that's derogatory as well. I guess the G7 members, I guess that's the best way to phrase it.
Of Israel to protect itself and react. But day one, we say that this reaction and the fight against terrorism, because it is led by a democracy, should be compliant with international rules, rule of war, and humanitarian international law. And day after day, what we saw is a permanent bombing of civilians in Gaza. And I think it's very important to say the whole story. But I think this is the only solution we have, this ceasefire. Because it's impossible to explain we want to fight against terrorism by killing innocent people.
That right there is it. That right there, we're gonna, this kind of approach of we're gonna fight terrorism by killing innocent people doesn't work, because that's one of the things that makes terrorists who they are, because they will target innocent people indiscriminately. That's the point. And so for Israel to be doing that is obviously counterproductive, unless of course you yourself are terrorists. That's the only reason you'd be attacking civilians like this. That's the only reason, because like we pointed out before, Hamas are predominantly in the tunnels, and so unless you've got bunker busters and you know where the tunnel is, or you're willing to go in there, or as people pointed out before on streams, that they have some sort of foam that destroys the tunnels. Unless you've got that, you ain't gonna get far.
Talked about the fight against terrorism needing to be merciless is the word you used, but not without rules. And you've just referred there to the high loss of civilian life in Gaza. Do you think Israel is respecting those rules, the international rules that you're referring to?
Look, in the very first days, it's clear that the emotion, the compassion, created a situation where everybody was just close to Israel and backing them and sharing the pain. And we do share their pain, and we do share the willingness to get rid of terrorism. We know what terrorism means in France. But I think there is no justification precisely to attack civilians.
What I would like just to clarify with you, are you saying that
there was a cut there which I don't appreciate. I don't know. It's a pretty deliberate cut as well. I don't know what he said there.
Israel is guilty of breaking international humanitarian law, potential war crimes.
No, I'm here. Look, I think it's not the proper way to approach the question. We do recognize the right to protect themselves. And 1 month after this terrorist attack, I think it would be not the right way to deal with a partner and friend just to say you will be condemned and you are guilty. De facto, today, civilians are bombed. De facto, these babies, these ladies, these old people are bombed and killed. So there is no reason for that and no legitimacy. So we do urge Israel to stop. I'm not here to, I'm not a judge. I'm a head of state. I just remind everybody international law. I call for a ceasefire, and I will urge them for a ceasefire, for a humanitarian ceasefire.
You can say what you want about Macron, but out of a lot of the countries you wouldn't expect this from, he has kind of beaten my expectations. So put some respect on him for that, I guess, because I wouldn't have expected France to have come out with this kind of statement. But respect him on this issue, that he's calling for a ceasefire, and I think that we might see more momentum and pressure for world leaders to push for a ceasefire. At least I'm hoping. We have got a kind of humanitarian pause, but again, it just means the bombing stops for a bit. People can try and escape those areas or get to supplies, and then the bombing restarts. Like, it doesn't end this cycle, not really. The only difference maybe now is instead of people dying of starvation, of dehydration, they're just more likely to die from bombs. So this is credit to Macron here. 100% credit to Macron calling for a ceasefire. But we need to see more pressure put on the other kind of UNSC members on this. That's, the only way we get anywhere is if the US intervene here. But at least, the more world leaders that push for a ceasefire, the more pressure there will be on the Americans, even though America really does what it wants. There was a massive Freudian slip from Justin Trudeau recently where he kind of mentioned ceasefire. He was going to say the word ceasefire, and then he had to stop halfway through and kind of catch himself. But I wouldn't be surprised if he supported a ceasefire as well. Couple more bits and pieces. The SNP calling for a ceasefire as well.
Need it now. And that's why next week, at the very first opportunity, Scottish National Party...
This is actually quite interesting, what the SNP are going to try and do.
...MPs in Westminster are going to seek to have a vote in the House of Commons. It will be a vote that will give all members of Parliament the opportunity to say that they stand for international law, that they stand for the protection of civilian life, and that they stand for peace. We all know that Hamas committed abhorrent atrocities on the 7th of October, and we all immediately want the release of the hostages who are still under there.
I think the SNP needs to invest in a better tripod, but what they're doing is people will try and accuse them of playing politics by calling for this Opposition Day vote. But given the fact that Hamza Yusuf has been very clear in calling for a ceasefire very early on, I don't think anyone, and I know a certain geezer may try and make that argument. I know he might do it. I'm 70% sure he's going to make that argument that the SNP are doing this for political reasons to make Labour look bad, because they had a similar vote on a different issue, and Labour voted it down. I can't remember what it was, but it was fairly recent, and Labour got a lot of stick for it. If anyone can remember what it was, the SNP kind of pushed for an Opposition Day motion, and Labour voted against it. I think it was the anti-protest bills, but I'm not sure. Or it might have been against the Illegal Immigration Act. I can't remember which one it was. It's one of those kind of dodgy, really draconian bills. If anyone does remember, please put it in the comments. But if anyone tries to accuse the SNP of playing politics here, is clearly devoid of any morals, really.
Control. And all of us, irrespective of party, must unite to condemn the rise of anti-Semitism that we have seen on these isles. And so too must we all unite in stating our unequivocal belief that Israel's response amounts to the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. The decision to cut off water, food, electricity, fuel, medicines from a civilian population in its millions cannot be justified. The fact that schools, universities and hospitals no longer exist cannot be justified. And that's why the majority of Scottish people back our stance. That's why 76% of people across these isles back our stance. So this is an opportunity for members of Parliament across party to show that they believe in a ceasefire too. In the SNP, respect for international law, respect for civilian life, and respect for peace, these are our values, and that's why we will stand up for them in that vote next week in the House of Commons.
This is a big move for the SNP because, again, they are, as he stated there, I think 76% of Scots back a ceasefire, and so they are trying to implement the will of Scottish people. And obviously they can't fully do that because of Westminster. They can't fully... to be fair, actually, it's not stopping them to, push for a ceasefire. So, they're trying to push it through the House of Commons that the UK should push for a ceasefire. Obviously, there's only one country in the world that can actually force Israel to agree to a ceasefire. But the more international pressure we put on world leaders and politicians, the more likely it makes a ceasefire. So I think the SNP are making the right move here. I think, politically, this puts Starmer in a very awkward situation because he's going to look out of touch regardless of what he does. If he tries to... There has been a tweet from, I'm going to say it's Ava from Politics Joe, saying, Labour are going to try and push for their MPs to vote against this bill. If they do that, there's going to be a lot of Labour MPs who will either abstain or they will vote for this bill. And that's going to make Starmer look bad. Starmer could try and force them via a 3-line whip. But if he does that, he'll have to force them out of the party. And if a lot of Labour MPs vote for this bill and Starmer doesn't, it's going to make him look very out of touch with the party. I think he'll try and persuade Labour MPs to vote against this bill, but I think he'll have to put it to a free vote. I don't think he'll have any choice but to put it to a free vote for the MPs because, again, he's in a very precarious position here. Yes, he has a 20-point poll lead, But, you know, I asked the question, does he really have, has he earned that 20-point poll lead based on anything he has done, or is it because the Tories keep shooting themselves in the leg repeatedly? Because I think it's the second. It's the second. I think it's the Tories have shot themselves in the leg repeatedly. If you think Starmer has actually earned his poll lead, I would love to discuss it with you in comments. But yeah, the situation is that I think Starmer is risking a fair bit here, regardless of what he does. This opposition day motion from the SNP will put him in an awkward spot. There will be some Tories, I think, that will support this bill. But I don't think it'll be that many of them, to be honest. It'll be interesting to see how many of them do it. But an interesting but cool move from the SNP, so I can respect that. We're going to switch gears slightly to the economy. So this is another interview, this is the same interview with Jeremy Hunt on a different topic regarding the economy. Here's the video going to play. Okay, and we refresh.
Call it a very, the ONS call it a very flat and subdued economy. It's not good enough, is it? You've delivered a stagnant economy for British people.
Apparently the economy might not grow really until 2025.
Well, a year ago, the Office for Budget Responsibility said that they were expecting the economy to shrink in the first part of
So she asks about an ONS analysis. He switches to the OBR.
This year by more than 1%. In fact, it's grown. And the British economy has shown itself to be much more resilient than many
but has
people.
It grown? It's flat.
Well, it's grown in the first 3 quarters of this year, and it was predicted to shrink.
The ONS.
Yeah, I don't think that's that great. We've got the UK in violation of international law over poverty levels. So not only are we allowing a country to breach international law, we are also potentially in breach of international law. So poverty levels in the UK are simply not acceptable, and the government is violating international law. The UN's poverty envoy has said ahead of a visit to the country next week, when he will urge ministers to increase welfare spending. Oliver de Chateau, I'm assuming he's French, the UN Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, cited research showing universal credit payments of £85 a week for single adults. Oh my God, that's really low, isn't it? That is so bad. For single adults over 25 were grossly insignificant and described the UK's main welfare system as a leaking bucket. In an interview with The Guardian 5 years ago, his predecessor, I remember this, Philip Alston, angered Conservative government by accusing it of systemic immiseration of a significant part of the British population. The Belgian lawyer risked a fresh confrontation by saying things have got worse. But it's not him risking a confrontation, this is his analysis. It's not his fault if his analysis is unpopular by Tory MPs. The government hit back, insisting he had not broken international law, that absolute poverty has fallen since the Conservatives took power, which is nonsense, and that was helping thousands of people into jobs, which again is kind of nonsense. De Chateau said, quote, "It's simply not acceptable that we have more than a fifth of the population in a rich country such as the UK at risk of poverty today," end quote, referring to government data showing that 14.4 million people lived in relative poverty in 2021 to 22, a million more people than the previous year. Saying, quote, "The policies in place are not working or protecting people in poverty, and much more needs to be done for these people to be protected," end quote. And so here you have the UK once again being called out by a UN Special Rapporteur over poverty. So there was that one. Was there anything? Let's see. You got everyone's favourite goon. What's this guy's name? Andrew Bailey. That was it. Talking about the Brexit impact on the economy.
Position on Brexit per se. That was a decision rightly for the people of the UK.
As a public official, I take no position on Brexit, which is nonsense, because he did take a public position on Brexit, which is he supported Brexit.
Take no position on Brexit per se. That was a decision rightly for the people of the UK. It has led to a reduction in the openness of the UK economy, though over time new trading relationships around the world should, and I expect will, be established.
But they won't replace what we have lost, big man. Like, if you lose 6% of your trade and replace it with 0.5% or even 2%, which we haven't done, you've lost 4%.
But to do that, of course, requires a commitment to openness and free trade. So to sum up this part of the story, we've moved from a state of affairs where the orthodoxy was to open up the world economy, to increase trade flows and increase the flows of finance to support this trade. And in doing so, yes, there was an increase in interlinkages and dependencies around the world economy. And some of those interlinkages turned out to be less resilient than we had expected. Take no position on Brexit.
Less resilient than we expected. How resilient did you expect them to be? I don't think I'll discuss these on stream. I mean, in a separate video. Oh wait, actually, that was one I wanted because Minister lies. This is the one I wanted here. This is the one that I kind of skipped over, but we'll discuss this now. This minister clearly lies about the situation around visas for musicians.
It is really important that we get touring musicians able to continue to tour without red tape in the EU. We have got an agreement where you can go to EU countries, tour for 90 days. We've done bilateral agreements with most...
So that 90 days one is in the... I think that's standard for all WTO members, I think.
Of those countries where musicians want to tour, I think there are only 3 or 4 in the EU where we don't have a bilateral agreement. But this is absolutely, Richard, on my radar, and I'm working with the Foreign Secretary to see if this is one of the things that we can continue to negotiate.
The other problem that I don't know if they mentioned in the clip, but she fails to mention is the equipment. All of the equipment goes through customs and it costs a ridiculous amount of money. So, depending on what kind of band you are, all of your equipment goes through customs. All your staff need visas if they're non-EU citizens. It's a complete nightmare for your team to go through.
With the
when
EU...
can you possibly tell Richard he might hear more? Obviously, he's toiling with this on a weekly basis, I imagine. When there might be some progress for him?
He is, well, look, we want to do this, but it's a question for the EU. So I can't give a commitment on timing because I'm not in control of that. But I would like to take issue with Richard's point that we haven't done anything, because in June I announced a culture sector vision.
Yeah, it doesn't cover the equipment. It just covers the individual musicians. It doesn't even cover their team, their entourage, or anyone like that. I believe so. It doesn't make sense.
Creative industries sector vision, support for the industry, and within that was £5 million for grassroots music venues, because we do recognise the importance of the pipeline of talent and musicians.
Do you think you'd do more to support the pipeline of musicians by supporting people in schools? Supporting music production and things like that in schools, which you've cut back on dramatically to kind of push other subjects like English, maths, science, and geography or history and language. You haven't pushed the creative arts at all. If anything, you've cut funding from the creative arts. Thanks to the power of the internet and the fact that the English language is spoken so much around the world, that does it help British musicians. Other than that, which you have, Tory MPs have no effect on how much English is spoken as a second or third language, but they have cut the money for creative for schools in terms of the creative arts, art, music, that kind of stuff. The stuff that people might use to criticise the government in ways they might not be able to easily refute and can gain big publicity.
Getting that support that they need, both domestically and internationally.
What impact has that, in a sentence, Richard? What impact has that had on your life, the Secretary of State?
Well, the 80 days on the 90 days and 180 days has cost many of my colleagues huge sums of money and lost them, lifetime gigs that they've had. As I said to you, it's cost much, smaller touring operations the opportunity to even go to Europe. And what you just said sounds, about what you've, I can't remember what you referred to it as, but it just sounds like the thick of it to me.
It sounds like the thick of it to me. And for anyone who doesn't know, the thick of it is it's a BBC parody show, right? Starring, oh man, forgot his name. He was Doctor Who. He's the, he was so good as Doctor Who as well. Who was it? No, I've forgotten his name. Oh, I'm so angry now. No. Doctor Who. Who is it? Peter Capaldi. It stars Peter Capaldi, that's it. It stars Peter Capaldi, where he plays, I think it's Malcolm Tucker, and he's meant to be kind of a version of like Alistair Campbell or something like that, and he is he is spectacular. He is spectacular in the show. If you get the chance to watch it, it's really good. He's there kind of clearing up ministers' messes, amongst other things. And, I think it's in the first episode where he tries to push a minister to resign. And he says, look, you can either jump or we push you. And at least you have some kind of some dignity in resigning rather than being sacked. And he was like, but I don't want to resign. It's like, look, it's either you resign or we push you. There's no in between. And it was so good. It was. Excuse me, tired. It was honestly so funny. If you got any kind of questions you want to put in the chat, feel free to do it. Because we're going to look to end the stream in a couple of minutes. I'm trying to figure out how to organise this big mess of tabs I've got around Braverman, but I think I'll leave it as is. I don't think it was that bad today. It's a bit jumpy in areas, but I think it's fine. So yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to post it in the comments. I'm just gonna check Twitter quickly to see if anything's popping off, and we'll end the stream in like the next few. Yeah, there we go. That's definitely one worth keeping there. That after all of this kind of language around hate marches and other things, the protest passed off without a problem. The only scuffles that involved far right protests, and that's something we've discussed as well. I don't know what Blood's talking about there. See, Braverman has told Sunak that the only way to save the Tories was to call for a snap election on small boats. I mean, she's talking undiluted drivel. Like to call for them to call a snap election. The only reason she would do this, is because she wants to become leader of the party quicker. If they call a snap election, they're gonna lose. There's no way they're gonna win this. Absolutely no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no goddamn way. As a wise man once said. I'm telling you, if they call for a snap election, it's over. It's over for them. Like they will not be in charge for a long time. 100%. He's gone on. Look, I condemn. Okay, he's put out a statement. I'll keep that for the video. Sunak saying, "I condemn the violent, unholy, unacceptable scenes we have seen today from the EDL and associated groups and Hamas sympathisers attending the National March for Palestine." Now, the Met Police, Channel 4 just said it went off without a hitch, so he's kind of equivocating these two marches that we've seen here. The despicable actions of a minority of people undermines those who have chosen to express their views peacefully. Remembrance Weekend is a time for us to come together as a nation, remember those who fought and died for our freedoms, and yet we cannot use such freedoms to protest. He says, this is true. He says, it's EDL thugs attacking police officers, trespassing on the cenotaph. It's true for those singing anti-Semitic chants and brandishing pro-Hamas signs, which I don't think we saw. I think the police would have taken them. He goes, he will be meeting with the police commissioner in coming days.
Where's your fucking puppies? Where's your fucking puppies?
That is something. Sorry, apologies for the language there, but it's the most right-wing goon thing I've heard. Where are your poppies? See that condemning the fash clash that his Home Secretary incited. So why is she still Home Secretary? That from Phil, which is kind of true, to be fair. Starset posted something that's interesting. Just more videos of these kind of riots. From I think this guy's just filming, to be honest.
Get back now! You get back!
I think these people are just filming. And the police have gone a bit maybe heavy-handed there. Let's see what Goodall's got to say.
Because right now, week after week in Britain, this issue is feeling more and more like a powder keg, ready to blow. And if politicians are adding ammunition, adding fuel to that powder keg, then I don't know where we're going to end up.
I think we're done for the day.
Yeah, not going great. Doctors Without Borders reporting that snipers have shot 4 patients in the hospital. I mean, it's just more evidence of certain groups of people not caring about international law. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It's hard to see Salman and Erdogan in one single picture for the first time in a decade. Sunak has hit out far-right protesters. Yeah, we just mentioned that. The United Nations just voted 145-7 in favour of a resolution condemning illegal Israeli settlements in Palestine, including East Jerusalem. The countries voting against the bill: Israel, the USA, Canada, embarrassing Canada, Hungary, not a surprise, the Marshall Islands, which I think is just a US thing, Micronesia, which I have no idea about that either, and yeah, embarrassing from the Canadians. People complaining about poppies again.
Counter protesters to come here.
Where is this geezer's poppy? Is a true question. Let's see if there's anything interesting here. Hussam Zolat saying London and all over the UK, organisers expect today's March for Peace and Justice in Palestine to be one of the biggest demonstrations in British history. And it was, to be fair. Definitely was. Oh, James Toney. What the hell? Oh no. Oh no. More athletes being exploited, or combat athletes. BBC News reporter keeps shifting left and right to cover the placard with bombing kids is not self-defense. I mean, yeah, it's a bit weird her doing that, to be honest. Accusations of Nazi salutes. I mean, it just gets crazier and crazier. The far right reliably proving today that they are going to be far more of a hate-fueled threat to safety than Palestine solidarity marches calling for a ceasefire again. That is correct. That is, she's right. Rachel Sharpie is correct once again. See, up to 1 million people attended today's pro-Palestine march in London. It's nuts. Starmer kind of putting something out regarding Remembrance Sunday. I mean, it's pretty normal. A lot of pictures surrounding the deaths in Gaza. There was a mad pile-on in London's Victoria Station as Michael Gove appeared for some bizarre reason in the middle of a sit-in protest for Palestine, who was greeting with screams of "Shame on you." It's not bizarre for Michael Gove to use a major tube station. He should be able to travel in peace like everyone else. Those acting in this fashion damage their cause, along with those displaying abhorrent anti-Semitism amongst the rallies today must be condemned. And again, I agree with Flynn. I don't agree with kind of surrounding politicians and things like that. I don't think it's on. Yeah, they were looking for a fight. Saying a peaceful march, but one where anti-Semitic tropes from some. What notifications have I got? Yeah, I reckon we'll call it a day here. It is a bit strange. The police, again, you got the Met Police. If they're, the Met Police kind of, it's a bit of a strange. Maybe he was doing this kind of stick it to Braverman a bit, saying that the pro-Palestine marches went off without a hitch. I don't know. Will Starmer last one term? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think. Let's see all the questions. I asked for questions. What have I been given? One line in Sunak's statement: condemn EDL for pro-Palestine marches. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That's dishy-rishy for you. Look up the Evening Standard front page. Yeah, I saw that. I did see that earlier. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was from the Evening Standard, but I did see one of the papers pull a stunt like that. It's embarrassing behaviour. Sunak blaming Hannah's. Who's Hannah's? Do you know what? I don't know. You know what? Hand on heart, right? I don't know if Starmer will even make it to the election at this rate. The Labour Party are so divided, and the SNP pulling this vote, or not pulling, sorry, going for this vote, is going to divide the Labour Party a lot. There is this idea that the Labour Party, according to the numbers, can win the election without Muslim voters, but it's not just Muslim voters that are pro-Palestine, and that's going to be one of the problems they run into, that these numbers don't bear out. So that's one of the things that Labour should be watching out for if they're purely just focused on just winning and don't care about morals, ethics, international law, or anything like that, which they seem to be. That seems to be the route they are going down. Do you know what? I can't see anyone brave enough to spark a leadership contest. I can't see who would replace Starmer if there was a leadership contest. So I think he's safe. He's probably safe until we get to an election, right? I think after the first term, I can see him going. I don't think he's got it in him. I think Bro is going to realise he's not built for this. He's awful at communication. The Labour comms team is a complete shambles. And I think they're gonna be in trouble. I think there's gonna be occasions where the economy's not gonna do that great because the economy's completely knackered. It's gonna take a long time for it to recover. They're gonna struggle to answer questions, and the only argument they're gonna keep falling back on is, oh yeah, the Tories were worse, or at least we're not the Tories, or if you don't vote for us, the Tories are going to win again. That's the only argument I can see Labour winning, or Labour using after potentially 5 years of just lackluster economics. Because if we look at what Rachel Reeves has said, lame, not going to grow the economy, not really. The only thing Labour might do is increase construction of houses, which I hope they up the standards on these houses, because some of these new build houses are complete trash, I'll be honest. But I guess if they do more new build houses, it will reduce the values of properties overall, one would hope at this point. I reckon Liz Kendall thinks she could beat Starmer. Liz Kendall couldn't beat a paper bag. I think Liz Kendall, did she get like 4% in the last leadership contest? No one likes Liz Kendall. No one outside of her constituents and her immediate family. No one's like, do you know who's a real political heavyweight? Do you know who really, when they talk, everyone listens? Liz Kendall. No, thank you. Didn't Liz Kendall, was it her that got into some sort of weird beef with Emily Thornberry as well? I think it might have been her. No, thanks. No, say no to Liz Kendall. No, 100% no. I'd rather get like Dr. Khan or someone who looks like they might have something about them. Not Liz Kendall. No, boo Liz Kendall. But if she does run against Starmer in a leadership contest, that would be hilarious. But going back to the question, I don't think Starmer. I think Starmer will do one term and he'll cut. So he will last one term. I think he will last one term, but after that, I think he's out. Is there any more questions you lot have? If you want to sneak any in, because if not, I'll probably look to call it a day and get to video recording tomorrow. But I did do a double upload yesterday, which hurt my soul, because it's a wasted video. But I can't lie, that video I posted yesterday, the one with the BBC one, that's doing numbers. To be fair, that's really charged the channel up a bit. Which is great. That's something I really appreciate from the audience. Labour front seat, what's her name? There are a lot of women on the Labour front bench, not to be funny. So I don't know. I don't know who it would, like I said, there's a lot of women on the Labour front bench. I'm not sure if there's anyone special there. Rayner. Not Jess. No, people, please. No, not Jess Phillips. No, I don't. No, she was on that show. She tried to do a TV show with Jacob Rees-Mogg. No, not Jess Phillips. No, definitely not. She's at risk of losing her seat. Yeah, you're thinking of Rayner. If this was a couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, Rayner. Big up Rayner. That's what I would have said. But given the way she's kind of been over the last year or so, her kind of backing, kind of just pushing all of these nonsense talking points. Not Rayner for me. Not Rayner. I haven't seen anything to constitute she would be good at leadership. The only thing I've seen from her is she comes out with a policy that looks good, and the Labour are like, actually, we're not going to do that. You know, she said we're going to get rid of 0 hours contracts. Labour Party, actually, we're not going to do that. You know, so I don't. Excuse me, no, not Rayner for me. She gets into briefing battles with other Labour frontbenchers. She gets into arguments that she's not been invited to certain meetings, etc. The main reason Rayner is where she is because she was elected by the party to be deputy leader. I think that's her position, deputy leader of the party. I think if she wasn't elected to be deputy leader, I don't think she'd be on the front benches. I don't think she gets along with Starmer, I'll be honest. You know, I know there was some bozo who compared it to a relationship where it's like, I don't always get on with my significant other. It's like, no, you're not in charge of the second biggest political party in the country. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't get on with your significant other. That only affects 2 people. Unless you have kids, it affects more people. If the deputy leader of the party doesn't get on with the leader of the party, that is bad for party unity. So I don't know how Bozo failed to understand that one. So yeah, I haven't seen a ton of anything to make me think Rayner would have leadership credentials. But yeah, I'll stand to be corrected on that. I think she's pretty tough. She has had to deal with a lot, I think, in her personal life. She's had to deal with a lot in her political life, given some of the comments that Tory MPs have made about her. So she's pretty tough. Have I seen leadership credentials from her? No. You know, like I said, she's been, I think, bullied by other members of the front bench who try to ostracize her a bit. Maybe they're jealous that she's elected by the party for her role, and they don't like that because they can be changed out, but she can't be, not really. But I guess I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. The Independent reporting that a lot of top military brass are very upset with what happened today. Even the British Legion have spoken to the Prime Minister. Yeah, I mean, they stormed the cenotaph. I mean, they got to the cenotaph. The police. I don't know what the hell they were doing. She's actually right from economical point of view. Economy is trillions of actions, not handing out support for the companies. People are right. What? That creates 30 bit. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about there. Look, we're gonna end the stream here. Thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. I'm a bit sleepier than I think I normally am. But yeah, well, I'll catch you all in hopefully next Saturday stream. Am I doing something next? No, I don't think I'm doing anything next Saturday. So I'll be streaming again hopefully. So I'll catch you all next week. Bye bye.